Time for us to bring you policy discourse. Let's look at some policies that needs to be made to enable the economy get better. Now we'll focus on the Nigerian economy. Let's look at what's happening with non-oil exports, as records show that a total of $2.7 billion receipts was made in the first half of 2024. And this was driven by increasing global demand for made-in-Nigeria products. That's good news for local manufacturers when there's a demand for made-in-Nigeria goods. But let's also look at it. What made-in-Nigerian goods, made-in-Nigeria goods are being demanded? How can the prospects of those goods be improved? Are there challenges that some other goods that are not on that list are having? Is there a way to remove those hurdles so that we can have more from the non-oil exports in Nigeria's economy? I still have my co-hosts here with me, Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze and Oyinpreye Krumale, and together we would be looking at the issues here. You can be a part of the conversation. Just go to our social media platform or our YouTube channel, hashtag FrontBurners, and let us know what you think about the increase in the contribution of non-oil exports to the Nigerian economy. What are your hopes for the Nigerian economy? What do you think can be done differently to give us a better result? Please go ahead and do that as we kick off the conversation. That's good news, Dr. Idahosa, that non-oil export has contributed, for the first quarter of the year 2024, it contributed $2.7 billion to the Nigerian economy. But there are some items that were the real earners when it comes to that. We had sesame seed, we had cocoa beans, and even urea fertilizers as key contributors to the made-in-Nigeria products or produce that were exported and generated a lot of revenue for Nigeria. But Nigerians are very industrious people. We have manufacturers here that are producing a lot. Those who are doing leather works are also contributing greatly because there's a high demand for Nigerian leather and Nigerian leather works. But we have other sectors, we have other manufactured goods here that could get into the foreign markets. What's your take?
Well, I think, again, we cannot but say kudos to the initiative of Aliko Dangote in massively investing in that infrastructure in Lagos. And I think we cannot take this away from him, especially the urea export of the fertilizer. For several years, we have been importers, and fertilizer has actually been one of the things that's a key issue in the agricultural sector. And we have seen what that man has done in terms of that investment, that he has been selling fertilizer and shipping them abroad. And I remember at the time that they started operation, they actually said, oh, even the 6-month production was that were already placed on them because there was a market for it. And I think these are, for me, initiatives that government must have to find a way to support people who are doing things locally. And that's just it. Because the contribution would be far more than whatever thing, any other thing had contributed, because we now have the opportunity that he's shipping abroad. And recently, about 3 days ago, we also got the news that jet fuel now is being shipped to Saudi Aramco from Nigeria. Kudos for that excellent businessman who's representing Africa very well. And I think we need more of him who will do business and government create that right environment to do proper business, and then we're going to make so much money. And don't also forget that even our banking institutions are also doing well, because services are also going offshore that is bringing these earnings. Recently, we have few of our banks having to saw the ground in Paris. And that's how far we have gone. We are conquering Africa and we are moving into Europe. And I think it's a sign of the very good things that will happen. And we cannot but only be appealing to the government of Nigeria to continue to create that ecosystem for businesses to thrive, because it's just important. Because once we create that enabling environment and we are fully digitalized, that people can have access to us at the click of a button, we will do more. And I think it's a good news for all of us that now we are earning more from abroad. But the area of sesame seed, the area of cocoa, the area of cashew nuts, and the area of ginger and the rest of it that we are drying and taking abroad, I think we should also do more to add value to them here in Nigeria before shipping them abroad. It will earn us more money and will be better for us. And whatever that the Bank of Agriculture will need or have to support the farmers of cocoa, the farmers of sesame seed and ginger, and all these other condiments that we are shipping abroad, can do to help those farms. And I think it will be a huge relief for the challenge that the economy currently faces.
Great.
Of course, agriculture has, since time immemorial, and even before the advent of oil exploration, was the mainstay of the economy. Of course, our leaders and political elites saw oil money and we neglected it. But now it's like we're going back to base. I am not surprised that we are making as much as 2.7 billion or so from non-oil exports. But my concern, yes, we've heard stories that Nigerian goods or local produce are what is in high demand now in the foreign markets, and it will work for our good because of the size of the dollar. When our goods are taken there, most especially if it's not China, because of the currency swap, we'll get more from that. But one area I want the government to put attention is the big companies that are into farming and agriculture in the country. The ones that are into research, for example, the IITA, who are into tropical agricultural products for producing the cash crops, which are in extension the staple food for our country, so that we can feed not only the teeming population in Nigeria and use other bilateral arrangements to extend to African countries and indeed the international market. Every loophole should be blocked. Export should be made very, very easy, because whilst the government is looking at this, we have to be putting our eyes on the balance of payment, because if our imports into Nigeria is greater and we are paying more, which I think it is what it is at the moment, than our export, then we'll be operating a negative balance of payment system, and that in itself will have a negative effect in the Nigerian economy, because local companies will be dying down under that weight. So like Doc said, value addition to our raw material. That's what we've been doing, this by exporting our raw materials out of the country. If it's example, the cocoa that we move out of Nigeria to other countries, most especially the West, and the added value turned it into chocolate and they bring it back to us in Nigeria, and we're spending lots of money to purchase it. It doesn't all go well for our economy. For our economy to gain balance, to gain strength, we must start thinking of adding value to all these raw materials, including the cash crop, before taking them out of the country. I think it was years back when we have the Chinese came to Nigeria, and when they look at the way we consume cassava and how we have the locals that transform cassava into the popularly called cassava flour, the one called gari and all of that, and they went ahead and they told us that In fact, I was having a conversation with a professor then at the university, and he said Nigerians are not into manufacturing. And that just let's keep watching the Chinese. They will come to this country, they will transform cassava flour, this gari, and they will start making it for Nigerians, and we'll be buying it massively for them. And of course, where does the earnings go? It gets back to their country. So even if we are not going to be the one doing the addition of the value, we make sure we attract foreign business people who can come and not just move out the raw materials away from the country, but to establish their plants here in Nigeria so they can, add the values here by providing, that will provide the necessary workforce for the country. And then we can have foreign direct investment into our country.
So this report was actually released by Nigerian Exports Promotion Council, and they actually reported a lot of facts around made in Nigeria goods and the non-contribution of the non-oil export. So it says that 211 non-oil products were exported to 122 countries. Now, of these countries, only Ghana was among the top 15 countries that Nigeria exported to. Ghana was the only African country that was among the top 15 countries that Nigeria exported to. And then many of the exports were routed through sea, and the Southwest and South-South were the major contributor of this export, because sesame seed, cocoa are mainly produced in this region. But we have other regions in Nigeria where very, very tangible agricultural activities are happening there. So what's going on with that? We used to be a big exporter of granules at some others, and that's why we had the granule pyramid and at the time in Nigeria. Are there sectors, are there particular products or even agricultural produce that we are neglecting right now?
Well, I think whatever you export is a function of what is needed elsewhere in other countries. There are a lot of us who travel abroad, and we go abroad and we're actually looking for Nigerian-made food. It's always amazing that when you go out with a set of Nigerians and they get out of this country, after 2 days, they are crazy for their Nigerian-made food. And I think the truth is just that I think Nigeria has the best food globally. I can test on that. Because it's difficult for an average Nigerian person to stay without their local food. And some people who have tasted it will say, wow, this is nice. It's that also that's actually the also driver. I remember the last time I was in Manchester, I went to one shop. They already said there's African, all the things that are produced in this country, they find a way. But there are some things that are not finding way in, which of course was one of the things we said the other day, that institutions like NITA should be able to do real good research. Take, for example, aside Brazil, Nigeria is the second largest producer of cassava. And cassava is a big deal. So we need our cassava to enter into the global market. But the only resistance in here is the fact that, of course, it has failed tests severally, because it seemed to have some carcinogenic substance. And yam too had faced some measure of tests. And I think that also required, because I know when my father was alive, he was a very good farmer. He didn't like to use fertilizer because he has this feeling that when you use fertilizer, the yam tuber don't last long. And something must be responsible for that. And that is where we also need to study. Those days when we were growing up, you used to have different kind of fertilizer. But what we have now is one single brand, like a one-size-fits-all kind of fertilizer. So whether you are using it in the north, you are using it in the middle belt, you are using it in the south, or in the mangrove region, it's the same. Because number one, soil tests are not done anymore. That helps you to determine the alkalinity or the acidity of the soil before fertilizers are applied. And those days you have extension service workers who move from place to place to ensure that if you're buying fertilizer, if you're buying the right one that adapts to your soil, was one good initiative which now has gone moribund. And yet we have so many people in the Ministry of Agriculture, but you don't have so many extension workers who get really into the interior to see what kind of fertilizer would this land need, what kind of thing do we take away from it, so that whatever that we are going to produce is good for the health of those who are likely to consume it. These are conversations that we need to have, that our research institution must be at their best, doing everything humanly possible to ensure that what we produce here, we eat it, and they are not destructive to our health, and those who are going to receive it elsewhere is also not destructive to their health. Now, once this is done, a lot can happen. Now, we also had advantage in terms of palm produce in time past. Today now, you discover that Nigerian is producing about 1,400 ton of palm produce. And the actual need is about 2,300,000. So which means there's also a gap in terms of palm oil. So we can't even export it because we don't have enough to satisfy local production. And so we are still spending money to import palm oil to meet up with the demand in the local market. Now, this is an area also that we also would need to focus on. Not just about having palm farms, which of course a lot of people have invested in Nigeria, but the yield is a challenge. And people all across the globe have been able to develop scientific methods to increase produce yield. These are the things we can specifically target as Ministry of Agriculture and see how do we create incentive in palm produce, incentive in cassava production, incentive in rice production, so that these things that we can actually farm in our environment, we don't need to import it.
So the banks also played a role in the facilitation of export, and some banks were named by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council CEO, and it urged them to key into it, leverage the opportunities in export to ensure that they help to improve the capacity of the exporters. What's your take, Pri, on the issue of market access? Doc has highlighted some of the challenges when Nigerian produce from Nigeria have access to international markets. Sometimes some of this produce are returned back because they do not meet up to the quality. And another thing too, for some, they would love to be exporters, but access to fund is a challenge. Now, we have the standard organizations of Nigeria. We also have NAFDAC, which is directly in charge of food and drugs in Nigeria. So why the farmers need to do their own parts to ensure that, yes, they know what fertilizers to use, they know how to apply them, the wholeness of the food, because what we take out and return back also reflect the wholeness of the food that we consume here internally.
Okay, first of all, I would cast my mind back to recent, not very recent, but last year when the Minister of Agriculture for Israel paid a visit to the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, and they were discussing our possible collaboration between Nigeria and Israel and how it's going to transform or have some form of positive effect in the agricultural sector in Nigeria. And one of the the remarkable statement the Minister of Agriculture from Israel made was that, I am surprised that your guavas in this country, you still eat them with the seed in it like that. So why? In Israel, we have a technology behind it where the seed, is crushed without even opening the guava. And I was beginning to think that level of technology that is deployed in the agriculture sector that has given them so much muscle and the confidence for him to talk about it outside, and was trying to sell the idea to Nigeria and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory that the guava they eat, you eat it with the seed in it, but the seed, you don't have to, break it like you normally do, like it appears as seedlings in your mouth. So when we're thinking of building roads using foreign consortiums to operate the build, operate, and transfer model back to Nigerian government, we should be also considering the technologies that some of these advanced countries used in their farming, so that we can deploy that into the farms here. And the government will have another role to play. Yes, you've talked about the Standard Organization of Nigeria, the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control, who equally have a role to play. But the Standard Organization of Nigeria plays a role that it has to operate with the Standard Organization of other countries that will have to verify and look at the processes that our food, the local produce, has been put through, if it is fit for global consumption. And if they are beginning to find carcinogenic substance in our yams or in our cassava, I think it will do more for the research organizations to revisit that, because it's going to be disadvantage as more we know that the foreigners or the global market is yearning for Nigerian products in some aspects, but in other aspects you are not doing very well. Also, Benue State, I think the motto for that state, if I'm not mistaken, is the food basket of the nation. So, and they've been crying. We know how insecurity has been dealing a heavy blow to that part of the country, and how this is affecting agriculture and agricultural produce from that part of town. So whilst the government will be looking at the fact that we are, non-export production, we've got about 2.7 billion, then we can do more. We can do more if we take care of all the challenges that we have internally, and we have a political will to settle or to put our foot on the ground to take care of that internally, to make sure that farmers have farms to go back to, not just going back to that their lives are well protected. And for those who require loans, who even require sometimes the exercise that the government engaged in by giving out free fertilizers for some of the farmers to go and use in their farms, so that the government can indirectly promote farming. So we have food on our table. They can do that, but not by giving it to white paper farmers, those who just have offices but do not have farms to attend to, but to make sure that those that the government is allocating gets to the main farmers. Then I think we have been making inroads into making our agricultural sector more productive for locally and globally.
Let's look at the contribution of regions. So for this, for the first quarter of 2024, where Nigeria recorded a $2.7 billion non-export revenue. So the Southwest and the South-South were the major contributors. But like I posed the question to Doc earlier on, that there are other activities going on in other parts of the country. What else can we concentrate on that we probably have that we've not taken full advantage of, that the world is in need of? How do we encourage the production of such? There is leather production going on in the north and in some other parts of the country, but the problem with hide and skin. Human beings are struggling for the leather to consume, rather the skin to consume as pomo or to eat. And then those who are using the skin of cows and some other animals for production are struggling to have that as raw material. So what else can we do to increase the exports that we make out of Nigeria?
Well, I think they also need to be deliberate government policy. The last time I was in Rwanda and I was coming back, and of course that's usual every time. Once you are entering into the airport, everybody come down from the vehicle, all the loads and bags are dropped. Then of course the intelligent dogs are meant to smell all the bags. And I was made to understand that it's not just drugs that they're looking for in those bags. They're also looking for the skin of animals.
The skin of?
Animals, because it's a contraband for hides and skin to leave Rwanda. When they kill the animal, they remove the hide and skin, leave it. The flesh they can go and sell in other places. But the hides is kept. And because it's one of their major revenue earner, because they're also into leather production. And I think we need to do a lot more in that regard. Because Nigeria eats all the belt, all the leather shoe, all the leather bag in the name of Momo. And really a problem. Because it's your wealth you are eating away. And because we are not really having a specific policy, that was what I was saying on Monday, that the kind of thing I envision is the fact that when you are even setting university up, set it up to meet the need of the environment. No, on Monday I was talking about I want to see a university of animal husbandry in Katsina, in Adamawa, where all we study is what do we do with all the aspects of animal. The husk is money. The milk is money. The soured milk is money. So dairy products, cheese, these are what Denmark is living on. So we can reinvent it here. And that's why there must also be a kind of concerted effort to take our brothers who specializes in managing cattle, for example, to train them on the cow value chain. How much money that is responsible they can make from it. And then we give them formal education. They are not just doing it traditionally the way we are moving cattle from place to place, because it's not profitable that way. So we need to encourage ranching system where provisions are made, fenders are brought, and the cow are fed. And then you see they have cow that is weighing 900 kg in Denmark. Now you can imagine what kind of milk come out and the fat that can come out from that kind of an animal. So these are the kind of things that we can do policy-wise to encourage export from this place. And like I said, the development banks, especially the agri-bank, must also invest not in every kind of farm, but specific strategic farm where we can quickly have some low-hanging fruits in terms of expert. And in this area, we already have an expertise, and then we just need research to facilitate it, and need the banks to put money in there and drive it. And of course, I tell you, in a very short period of time, we can actually become a superpower.
I think it's a good one for Nigeria that the non-oil export is contributing a lot now, but that can be improved. There's a lot that Nigeria has comparative advantage in, lots of agricultural produce, and even in manufacturing. Some time ago, somebody was saying that they rather buy shoes made in Nigeria because there are certain places that you buy shoes from, you're sure of the quality of the leather. But can we harness these potentials? Can there be more investment in these areas to ensure that the companies or the manufacturers have enough resources to further polish what they're doing, improve on the quality, and also increase the quantity of what they produce to sell outside of Nigeria. In terms of agricultural produce, Nigeria can do more in terms of cassava production, palm oil production, and then for the quality, I think this thing that happens in Nigeria where sometimes when we're producing for ourselves, we just feel it's for ourselves. So however we do it, we do not adhere really to the quality standards. When we take these goods outside of Nigeria, when we take this farm produce outside of Nigeria, then when they are weighed alongside the, based on the standard that that country has set, it falls short. It's an eye-opener to the fact that some of the produce that we even consume in Nigeria may not be as wholesome as they can be, but they can be because they are natural produce. So more attention needs to be paid to how we grow our crops, how we process them, how we preserve them. Palm oil, for instance, you're buying palm oil from the market and you're not very sure if what you're buying is totally palm oil or there is a part of it that is palm oil mixed with some other ingredients that you do not even know of. So more needs to be done. We need to pay attention to quality because when we consume our own goods, when we consume our own produce and we spread the word about it, that way it will call the attention of more persons to it because some people would rather buy some of this agricultural produce from neighboring countries. They'd rather buy some of this products from other countries. So if we have the potential, we should put in all that is necessary to ensure that when this produce gets outside of Nigeria, they are appreciated and there is more demand. While the government should also, when thinking of empowerment programs, when thinking of social investment scheme, there are people that can be trained on certain aspects of production from other regions of the country so that together we can grow Nigerian exports and bridge that trade deficit to be a good one for us at the end of the day.